Okay, hey, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we're in a bit of a sub-segment called Wristwatch Rambles and Rants, which is a sponsored segment brought to you this time by Wrist Candy Watch Club. So definitely check them out. What they are able to do by sponsoring these segments is it allows me to do some other stuff besides just straight up reviews. So that while this won't be a comparison, it'll be more so just speaking on this recent trend in terms of why GMT watches are gaining so much momentum in the year 2022, which I'm sure a lot of you have noticed. So I do have a small selection here of recent watches in terms of reviews and all that represent the different categories in terms of the movements that are being more and more popularized within this space. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get these pieces in hand, and get our chat on. All right, guys. So big thanks again to Wrist Candy Watch Club. Really quick before we dive into the details here, let's take a look at some of their recent offerings. So check it out. They actually do have these really nice new ribbed NATOs, which are fantastic. They all have milled hardware and everything like that. Definitely check them out. These are all in 20mm length, and these are, I think, three really great colors, very versatile. Of course, you have the dark blue, you have your kind of sea gray, and then this nice coyote brown. They even do have the ribbed style, but with an actual pattern on there, which I think is another nice touch. And they've even expanded into some other categories that we haven't seen too much of before, which is these really cool rubber straps. Check these out. I really dig this one right here. Very versatile, quick release, very soft and supple, as you can see, very pliable. Nice thin construction there, so it's going to be very comfortable, and I think really well engineered. And you can see it has the nicely brushed hardware there. So this is for kind of a little bit more versatile, right? It's going to have that almost 3-link style contouring to it, or you could go for something a little bit more Japanese with the waffle pattern that you're going to see here. So another great option, and you can see the dark blue looks really nice, as well as their traditional black kind of waffle there. And you can see that these are also very pliable. So check them out, guys. I appreciate Wrist Candy Watch Club, of course, for sponsoring the channel. And if you enjoy the channel, feel free to support them by checking out the links in the description. But with that said, let's talk about GMT watches. So why is it that GMT watches are now one of the most desired complications? I think there are actually a few reasons. I mean, obviously GMT watches even got me because my first Grand Seiko and my first real truly luxurious watch ended up being a GMT complication. So why is that? So I think a number of reasons. To start, recreational travel has become more available again after these recent lockdowns, and I think it's even more aspirational than it has been in the past, thanks to social media kind of priming the double satisfaction of not only experiencing your trip, but also sharing it with others. Like, who doesn't love sharing those great captures, those great pictures? And then, of course, for me as a wristwatch fan, taking those pictures in great locales with different backgrounds, it's a lot of fun. So there's definitely some more allure to that. So it feels like it's just kind of this intuitive thing where they fit pretty well together. Next, mechanical GMT movements are becoming more accessible and affordable. Here we have the Seiko Collars GMT, which is actually, I think I haven't reviewed this one yet, but definitely stay tuned for the full. I guess it'd be more of a preview than a review because this is pre-production. But this is an RZE model, and it's a really nice looking GMT, and it has a great affordable movement inside, and it's at a great price. Again, this isn't a watch review, so I'm not gonna go over like prices. I'm not trying to compare these. It's more so just to kind of show you guys, okay, we have this movement here, which is a Seiko movement. Then we have this one packing a Miyota movement. This is actually this has the ability to be a traveler's or true style GMT, and it also has the higher beat rate as well, which is nice. So it actually has the same functionality as my Grand Seiko that I have on my wrist in terms of being able to jump the hour hand. So if you see this little example, if I was going to fly to Texas, it's 2 hours ahead, jump 2 hours ahead, pop it in, and then when I come back, I'm rolling back 2 hours, and then I'm back. So there's that. And then of course you get a little bi-directional action, which is really nice. Definitely check the channel history for the full review there. And then here, this is more of a unidirectional style. So basically a dive style bezel, just with the 24-hour markings. You can hear it has that distinctive 120 click mechanism. And then on the other side, another thing that's is that, more smaller brands are starting to develop in-house movements. And this one from Yema, they developed an in-house movement. So this does have that nice smooth sweep, but it is a collar style, but it is in-house, right? So that's pretty nice. And then it has, of course, this little lockdown. Definitely check the full review there. And it's a handsome piece. Lays nicely, very nice case back there. Check that out. And then you can see even the links have a nice drape to them. Very nice, especially considering that the case profile is definitely a more subtle curvature and a bit more flat than typical, I think, versus what you'd see out there in the market. So you have this kind of French in-house movement thing going on. You have, on the more affordable, under $500 kind of range, you have Seiko movements. Then in the kind of closer to $1,000 range, you have watches that are going to be packing this Miyota movement. So those are more available, yes. And then honestly, these kind of go anywhere, do anything themed watches are becoming more and more popular. And it's really eating into that traditional kind of dive watch market. Even here, right? Like, this is not a dive watch. It has 200 meters water resistance. It's a go anywhere, do anything type of deal. All of these watches have screw down crowns and tons of water resistance. They have sporty bracelets, and obviously would look great swapped out onto different types of straps. So there's a lot of that there. And then honestly, it's a very low cost, low risk conversion from the dependable yet very competitive dive watch market. So you could take a dive watch, these two had corresponding dive watches that were released before these GMT ones were released, that had then shared very similar architecture, whether it be the bezel, the case back, and everything like that. So it is, of course, a lot less in terms of development costs to convert something like this. And then it also really plays into a completely different market, though, with that GMT capability. So very cool. And then you think about something like this piece from Jack Mason, where this was all developed from the ground up, but honestly, you could easily, that was one of my first thoughts, is how cool would this be developed as a dive watch as well, maybe like a no-date diver. Now you kind of did all that groundwork, and then it's really just going to be the bezel mechanism that needs to be, that could be updated, of course. And then everything else is going to be very simple in terms of if they did want to turn this into a dive watch, which I think that they should. But I do know that they're developing some other premium dive watch ideas still right now, and their diver is about, it's still out quite a way, and they're really focusing on this strato timer release. But yeah, in terms of it being something that's, again, kind of low risk, and you're getting a lot of bang per buck, developing a diver with a GMT or a GMT from an existing dive watch, again, it kind of makes sense from that perspective, and ends up being lower risk and lower costing. And then I think that probably the final reason, at least for me, is that it's a really kind of confusing and interesting complication to learn about in terms of the lingo, right? GMT, Greenwich Mean Time, UTC, Zulu time, being able to calculate the different, time zones, tracking multiple time zones, understanding kind of that globetrotter side of the map, plus and minus for each different line there. So I think that's something that also is very interesting. Also, there's a nice robust history, these being developed, for Pan Am pilots back in the day, and them really getting excited about being able to track those things, and it being very functional back then, but now being a little bit more just like a novelty, or something with like a fixed bezel here that was more so, let's say, inspired by something like the Explorer 2, which took this type of layout to more on kind of that go anywhere, do anything, and kind of it being a spelunking and kind of a cave adventuring type of watch, where they were more so using it as a day-night indicator versus a way to track multiple time zones. Although this is great for traveling in terms of like trying to call multiple time zones, it's nice because it does have that index chaptering there, which does have the 24-hour scale, but it doesn't have a rotating scale there. So in terms of tracking 3 time zones at once, not going to be as easy. Definitely very easy to track 2 time zones, or just using as a basic day-night indicator works as well as it being, just a great travel companion, because then you can just jump the hour hand to wherever you're located. So yeah, I mean, this one, I know it's wristwatch rambles and rants, but I'm going to try to keep this one a little bit shorter, and really just open the floor to you guys. What are your guys' thoughts on the GMT market? You guys can see it's a very competitive now. There's a lot of brands that are developing their own movements, using more affordable, accessible movements. And then, of course, out of nowhere, Miyota decides to drop a true mechanical GMT, which is awesome. So having that jumping hour hand is great. And again, I think that ties into in terms of it being just a great conversational piece, is whether you have a great use case for using it as an office caller and saying, hey, look, like these two would be wonderful for, hey, I'm in the West Coast, I'm calling someone in the East Coast, and then I also need to know what time it is in Japan to see if I need to follow up on an email, right? So that would be great for those types of use cases, and honestly very intuitive. And then something like the Strato timer being more, inset with the Travelers style GMT, of course, of my Grand Seiko, to where you could just jump that hour and, really just use this to be more of a travel companion. So yeah, I really dig that. I like that GMTs are kind of getting a little bit more time in the sun, because they're very interesting. And of course, typically you're getting dive watch, water resistance in a very compact piece that does have, again, a very useful tool that doesn't really get in the way, right? Like when you have depending on the complication, sometimes it can mean that setting your watch is going to be a little bit harder, whether it be like a moon phase or something like that. Or let's say you have chronographs, which I love chronographs, but ultimately, that's going to compromise water resistance. Although I do have some very robust waterproof chronographs, You know, ultimately it's going to be built like a chronograph, right? And you're going to have those external pushers and everything else like that. You're typically going to get a lot more added height than you would get from just having an extra hand within the stack, which will give you a little bit more height. Don't get me wrong. But it's definitely something to consider here. I really just I'm happy to see more and more brands that are working to push out complications like this that really just kind of keep things fresh, keep things competitive, and are honestly a lot of fun. I mean, I love dive watches, don't get me wrong, but seeing the rise of kind of these more adventurous timepieces, I think it's a lot of fun, and it's something that I do enjoy, and you guys have seen on the channel. This is just a small selection. There's probably 3 or 4 more GMTs that I recently reviewed that have already gone on to the kind of next reviewer. These ones I just happen to still have on queue, kind of on hand while I'm filming this. So with that said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do it like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.